welcome to the DigiFan Podcast at the Metasports League Studios here in Minnesota, Edina, Minnesota. Today we've got Waggs on his way, JC, ElTeegs, and peaNUT. This is episode number 3 of the DigiFan Podcast. Welcome, guys. How we doing?
We're doing wonderful here in the great state of Minnesota. Had a little bit of a temp dip, and people are already out ice fishing already. People are already out fishing by where I live.
Dangerous to be on that ice right now.
Hey, 2 inches safe enough.
True.
There's
some.
That's
what she said.
Starting off hot here on a Friday.
Perfect.
Oh man, I love it. We got a lot to talk about today. We got Waggs on the way. We got a little bit of college football. We got a little bit of hockey, off-season baseball talk. We'll see where the conversations go. But what are you guys thinking to start it off?
How moist will Waggs be when he gets here?
Well, we might as well get in what we can now
before he takes over.
He is our fearless leader. I mean, the guy can talk sports, boys. The guy can
with the
talk
best
sports.
of them. With the best of them.
Yeah, his shirt tail is hanging out of his car door right now as he's hustling here. He's been texting us that he's on his way. He's on his way. Shit's gone bad, but he's on his way.
He's on his way.
It's going to be a sweaty mess. It's going to be great.
Oh man, I love it. Yeah, we got. I know we wanted to talk a little bit of college football here first. We got a couple of really good games coming up. Championship week, plenty of controversy back and forth. You know, you're looking at the polls. I know that they're expanding the playoffs. So that obviously
12 teams, right?
That changes the situation a little bit. You know, you look at a lot of the Power 5 schools. You know, some people on the outside looking in. You know, you got Conference USA Championship, Mountain West, American Athletic. You know, some teams that might be able to skirt in for the first time in a while. I'm really excited about the Boise State UNLV game tonight at 8 p.m. EST.
And what about those top contenders, right? You have Oregon 11-0 and Ohio State 10-1, Penn State 10-1, Texas. I mean, it's crazy how good these teams are doing.
Yeah. Oregon, Penn State tomorrow. That's going to be a big one. 8 p.m. EST, like you said. Oregon undefeated, Big Ten championship. It's going to be a filled weekend. Georgia, Texas too. I mean, you just look at the lineup of some of these teams. I've really been impressed. You know, seeing teams like Army come into the fold. You know, they're playing out of their mind. So yeah, we'll have to see what
Clemson, Alabama. I mean, those teams are good.
What are the consequences for Ohio State after losing that game to Michigan?
Oh man, I mean that was that was detrimental. It's interesting though. You look at some of the strengths of schedules and seeing when it comes down to the final stretch how, you know, again, we were just talking about this before we jumped on, you know, for our beloved Minnesota Wild. You know, they're off to a great start and people are upset that they're not winning certain ways out of all things. You know, 17-4-4 right now, I think it was, I just saw. And again, you look at how these schedules pan out, the strength of schedules, and you know, again, some people are really, you know, analyzing people saying, "Hey, you won by 25, and you should have won by 40." You know, and so how does that factor into some of the rankings, or you know, if people skirt in at 11 or 12, you know, versus maybe they land at 7 or 8. So yeah, there's going to be some interesting games here. Like I said, I mean, championship games, I think those definitely matter when you're looking at, some of the head-to-head matchups that you have in certain conferences too. So,
and anything can happen. You know, when you're playing in the championship games, anything can happen. They can come out and play better than they ever have the whole season. So you just never know how they're going to put it together.
Yeah. Think about, man, that championship game a couple years back with Alabama, where I believe they had brought in Tua Tagovailoa. And he came in and just absolutely changed the narrative of the game. So even with injuries, I think about obviously what's been going on with Texas. You have Ewers and you have Manning. The prodigy of Manning. If he goes down, can Manning come in and just jump in and just be lights out? We'll have to see how some of that goes, because I know that there's been some injuries for the Longhorns this year. So one of many interesting games. Like I said, that Georgia Texas game is going to be unreal. Oregon Penn State. Like you said, how does that Ohio State, loss, how does that factor into the fold, and how the committee looks at it? Because again, if you have, a two-loss team, 3-loss team, I mean, I can't imagine too many 3-loss teams getting into the fold, unless, you again, maybe the margin of loss is so minimal that, and the wins were so impressive that maybe could offset. But I'd have a hard time imagining, that if you have an undefeated team who's kind of looking, from the outside in, even if it's a weaker conference, I'd have a hard time believing that they might not be able to, sneak in, even if it's at the tail end, if they win a championship.
The one blemish really changes their entire profile of their team, because you just look so dominant when you don't have a loss. And then you have the one loss to Michigan, and that changes everything.
Exactly. Yeah. And again, you look at the margin of victory and strengths of schedule. I think that's what it's really going to come down to for, the committee. And again, I'm curious to see if, do they expand more, with all these changes. I know we were talking about last week, even with hockey and looking at, where players are able to play at different times of the year, their eligibility. I mean, obviously that's a huge thing, even just with, we talked a little bit about NIL and the transfer portal last week with Joe Delich. And I'm really curious just to see, again, as some teams go on to win these really important games, how big of a deal is it, or how much does it have an impact on the transfer portal? Somebody lose, and then, quarterbacks are instantly looking for their next team to try and jump into. And I know that's the case with DJ. Man, I always butcher his last name. I think it's Uiagalelei, something close to that. But he had played for Clemson at one point. I know he's kind of been bouncing around from, he went to Clemson, and then he went to Oregon State. And I know Dylan Gabriel, kind of the same case too. He's had a couple of different teams that he's played for as well too. So there's a lot of things that are constantly changing. As teams go on to win, maybe they want to double down and stay another year. Maybe if they lose, they're looking to go on to the next team. So a lot of interesting things to talk about college football. I know there are also a couple of other topics I think that you guys maybe wanted to.
Yeah, well, I just want to say, obviously, the rankings and the brackets going to be announced this Sunday. So, hold on tight for that, and let's see what happens.
When's the earliest that a player can enter the portal? Because I remember last year at the end of the season that Kaliak-Manis, right, before they even went to their bowl game, he already said he was out. So they pulled a guy that wasn't even on the roster to come in and win that game for the Gophers. That was like a great story. He was supposed to be at his wedding, and
was that the bowl game?
Yeah, he changed the date of his wedding.
Somebody might need to fact check this if you're watching on any of the streams out there. I know that we're live right now on X. We're also live on YouTube, Facebook, and I believe we also
Twitch as
we
well.
have Twitch as well too. Thanks, Doc, there for the assist. December 9th. December 9th,
okay.
The portal opens. So
I wonder if that'll be one of the tweaks that they want to change, as they figure out what's the best for these young athletes and trying to manage their future, because you could really screw things up.
Yeah, you think about, some of the, obviously you got to think about the whole picture here with combines. Then you look at the Senior Bowl. You look at some of these different events and different moments in time for athletes' journeys, especially when we're talking about football. And it's hard to just completely dismiss that these championship games don't have an impact on players' trajectory and players' legacies too. If it's the difference between, winning a championship or not, maybe that's the thing that really, is kind of the nail in the coffin in a good way, or kind of seals the deal for, someone who's maybe a fringe first round pick into the top 10, maybe. It just, you never know what type of impacts at these championship games, or if they go on to win it all, what that can do for a player's legacy.
I think it's a big impact, definitely.
I think about culture and morale too. If you have a coach that's, no longer there, moving on, or a player that's transferring, what does that do to the locker room and the team? And I think for the most part, people are pretty resilient, and when you're at the college level, but you can't just dismiss the fact that it doesn't have a impact on everything that's going on.
If your coach is leaving, I think that's easy to go in and make a decision that, hey, I'm going to enter the portal. But can you imagine how a 19-year-old kid, Ethan Kaliak-Manis, comes in and he's got to sit down with Fleck and tell him he's leaving before we go to the bowl game? He had to be shitting his pants.
Conversation you don't want to have.
And literally, you're doing that to not to mention all your teammates.
Yeah,
who they don't even have someone to come in and fill in for you. They had to go find that guy. And it was a beautiful end of the story. But and then Kaliak-Manis comes in this year and beats the team. Which is like who would you almost could have predicted that was going to happen.
Right.
When you saw that game on the schedule.
Is that Rutgers? He's at Rutgers?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, here the Gophers had such a good run.
Yeah.
They almost beat Michigan.
Close.
And then they had a couple of upsets. And then you see this Rutgers, like it should be no problem, except for
The one and only.
the one and only Calec Manis is on there. And he wins the game.
Yeah.
Which is like, you can't make it up. I mean, you can't
Cherry
make it
on the Sunday.
Yeah. Speaking of football, we dove in a little bit there in college football. When it comes to the NFL, I don't know if you guys saw that game last night. I think it was probably one of the first times I can remember in my life where I was actually
pulling for the Packers.
pulling for that. I can't believe it's even coming out of my mouth
How
right
can
now.
you even say that?
I can't even believe
Not
it.
in the,
And
not
fact-
here. Not
Oh,
here.
man.
The fact, I mean, the other week I was rooting for the Bears, and that's kind of crazy to say. And then last night, the Packers.
Oh
and
my
it's
God!
just-
How about that Bears game?
Incredible.
Oh,
Don't even get me started. Just two games where
Oh, man.
I was really rooting, for a little bit of an upset, and both teams just kind of dropped the ball. But yeah, that was definitely just, I don't know. Did you guys see any highlights or?
I watched the game.
Yeah, I saw the ending of it. I saw some of the fourth quarter, and I was just
I saw
sick to my
it.
stomach.
Yeah.
I mean, I saw then they were calling it an instant classic today. And I thought, I don't know if it's a classic, but the Lions and their desire to always go for it on fourth down. I don't know if they're relying on data or they just want to be, we're better than everybody. We're going to go for it on fourth down every time. Or he's trying to make up for the mistake potentially that he made in the NFC Championship last year,
Yeah.
where he just
You're not going to make it up.
yeah.
Yeah.
He's just trying to bury that particular one by having so many subsequent ones that maybe we'll forget.
Yeah, it was such an interesting game back and forth. Like I said, I tuned into the fourth quarter, and again, just seeing how it went down. Really doesn't seem like Detroit is going to be stopping anytime soon. Dan Campbell he's truly an outlier. He's a very unique coach in the way that he connects with his players, the way that he talks. I mean, you see, all the locker room talks, and I've really been enjoying, Kevin O'Connell, head coach for the Minnesota Vikings, the way that, he continues to lead. I mean, he's young, so he can really still connect with the players on the team. And obviously he's had that playing experience. So he knows what a lot of individuals are going through on the roster. But yeah, Dan Campbell, the Lions, man, is, as much as I hate to say it, they've just been on an absolute tear, and I don't see them stopping anytime soon, which it's crazy to say because we're playing pretty well too for the Vikings. But even just looking at, I was just taking another gander at the standings, and I mean, man, there's a lot of teams that are really just taking off. You got KC, Buffalo, Pittsburgh.
Let's talk about KC. Because
but in Goff, I was going to say,
yeah.
he's the closest thing to an AI quarterback. I mean, he just seems like he doesn't make a lot of mistakes.
True.
On fourth down, he seems like he's not even at any stress. He just makes those throws them into coverage. I mean, he seems, and his quarterback rating is 150 plus all the time.
Yep.
I mean, he is a money quarterback.
Yep.
With no flash.
None.
Zero.
Yeah. I think about that trade though, how that even happened between, Goff for Stafford.
Right.
And I would say arguably it's done pretty well for both teams. And that usually doesn't happen.
Right.
At the time when they had done the deal, it was a little bit of a surprise because it was like, really, it's a pretty interesting trade that there was similar perception of value for each player. But yeah, I mean, I would say they've gone on to do pretty well both ends.
Goff handled it well. Stafford, of course, gets the Super Bowl, but Goff, he's basking in the Los Angeles sun. He's got a great, situation in the NFL, and they throw him to Detroit, and you're like, what the hell?
Yeah. So I mean,
look what he's done.
Yeah. No, I mean, and I was just kind of looking too, just seeing what was going on at the Rams. I know they're 500 right now, just hanging out there over in the NFC, but. Really curious again. I know you were saying a little bit with KC, Buffalo, Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
I know that they're all big contenders. Obviously, you have Detroit, Philly, Minnesota, Green Bay is kind of creeping up. So I'm really curious to see
Dolphins
how things.
Even
Say that again. Miami too.
Yeah.
I mean, they're an interesting case being at 5-7 right now.
Well, you have Tyreek Hill, right? He's leading the league in passing and receptions, and I mean that's in yards. I mean that's a huge win for him.
Yeah, I mean, you got to have, some of those outliers. I was even looking at the Bengals too. I mean, they haven't had necessarily the best performing season so far at 4-8, but, Burrow's been able to have some shining moments. Obviously, they have a young receiving core in Chase and Higgins.
Leads the league in touchdown passes.
Burrow.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, he's been playing very well, very well. But it's, again, just kind of look at the whole team, and you got to look at the defense. You got to look at some of those other contributor factors. And, that's when we're even, talking about what's, going on with some of these other teams too. And, you may have all the right pieces in the right place, but different things just, they look good on paper, but on the field, it doesn't click.
How much is Cousins not looking forward to his return to Minneapolis this weekend?
Is he going to get booed?
He should get booed.
Do you think he'll get booed?
I'm booing.
I'm hoping he doesn't. Actually, you're booing him.
If you know the guy, he's got no revenge game in him at all.
Right.
I mean, he's a businessman. He's not. He doesn't have that
emotional.
He's the Joe Mauer of Minnesota sports. He's got no edge.
So let me just ask you, just because I have daughters, how much does Taylor Swift play a part in the KC wins? I just want to throw it out there. 0? None?
0.
Okay. Well, you heard it first from Jeff.
Does she show up still?
Well, I heard that.
I thought she had a falling out with Mahomes' wife.
Oh boy. Well, then you know more about it than I do.
But it's the last minute of play in the period.
It's the last minute of play in the period.
We have a special guest that just rolled in.
Minute of play in the period.
Here he is.
The one and only
Waggs. We are live. You just hop right in and you direct us.
We waited and waited and waited.
We're gonna go to commercial break. We'll be back with Waggs.
Oh my gosh.
Okay, so
welcome back, DigiFan Podcast. We have our fearless leader back, the one and only Waggs.
Let me get my info here. I have no idea what I'm saying. I am a robot. I do not know how to speak.
We got. I was saying earlier, we missed having you. You're the point guard. You're the facilitator of conversations here. Yeah, a little Mike Conley action.
We went through little college football. Football. We're right now in the.
So you got right out. You were smart because that's not my wheelhouse.
Yeah, we just jumped in.
That was
Jeff's call.
Hey, Doc.
Yes,
can we
sir.
go down a little bit on these or no?
Sure.
Okay.
I think. Are you 4?
I think so. I mean, this is all on air production. Have we had any people jump in?
No, not yet. No. We've just been hanging, chilling out, talking a little bit college football. We jumped into some NFL discussions, and
What do we cover? A little more up now. Sorry, I'm such a diva.
Dude,
It's just like, I can't hear a thing.
I can't hear anything.
yeah,
I
it's all
know.
good.
Just a tick was all we needed for work.
Is that good?
Everything was
That's good.
fine when you
We're-
came in.
I know.
If you can believe it, we were talking about the Vikings, and somehow Bernsey rolled us into Taylor Swift.
Yes.
Were you talking chefs?
Well, no, what I'm saying is, I have girls and they just want to know how much does Taylor Swift play a part in Casey's wins.
Did you see what my guy Belichick said?
No.
Go ahead.
They showed her. He goes, "We don't need to see that anymore. We don't care." It was great. Right on the Manning cast. Just threw it right out there. He goes, "We don't need that. We're good."
Casey's never been so
It was
popular.
so excellent.
You know why? He probably thinks she's too old.
Oh, wow. At least he can get Jeff. At least he can dip it down a little bit.
Hey, speaking of goals, we talked a little bit about it. How about the Minnesota Wild?
I mean, it's been. Here's an interesting take for you. A big issue too. I have heard a very strong source suggest that there may be surgery in the offing for Jonas Brodin.
Oh.
I'm not going to divulge the location of the injury, but it's no place you'd really want to get one. So
we're
for
talking,
an athlete,
okay.
And you said you don't. You don't. Yeah, you probably don't.
It might rhyme
His
with
ass
the word
hurts.
hack.
Got it.
Okay, rhymes.
Got it.
Because we all go.
Sack. Hack sack.
I mean, screw this lower body, upper body, just, okay, whatever. The NFL, at least they tell you guys got a hammy, it's a hammy.
Did he take one off the dongle, or
Hey,
what
can I ask a
happened?
question about that, by the way?
Dongle.
This concussion protocol in the NFL, is that an on-demand thing? Is that real? Because like these NHL guys that concussed can sometimes be out for their career or for long periods of time. And
Sure.
I like when you look at what happened to Tua in Miami. I don't know about you guys, but how can you come back
That's a
that
serious deal.
fast from the protocol?
where's
or
the-
was there a big matchup and we just needed to make sure the ratings were there? Like, I'm not. I'm being cynical,
So-
but
Yeah.
like, fair question.
What I understand also is that with inside the helmets, right? They have these sensors that tell you how bad that hit actually was, and it goes
Seriously?
oh yeah, they're very very like top notch helmets,
Oh, yeah.
and now they come with different padding and everything else. So you'll see like the quarterback with these gigantic helmets, right? So,
What do you guys think of the Guardian look?
The
Would you wear the Guardian
yes,
and look weird,
100%.
or would you just say I'm going style? I don't care.
no, if it's going to prolong your career
Yeah.
And your life,
bring
but-
safety, yeah.
I don't know. I don't think.
See-
I think I'm too much of a poser. I wouldn't wear it. I
It's
take
like
the
hockey
risk.
players. It's
Yeah,
like
I
hockey
couldn't
players.
do it.
Take off the helmet. No visor, no nothing.
They look,
Yeah,
they look like the Great Gazoo.
It's well, they
That's
look
fine.
like
The guy from the Jetsons,
back.
the little Martian.
who's the back on Miami? He's a little
Flintstones.
smaller. He
Yes.
wears it.
Yes.
peaNUT. The back on Miami is a little smaller. It's not Mostert, obviously. It's the other
He
one.
shows up on a shirt.
You know who I'm talking about?
Yes, the other running back.
He literally looks like he's going to tip over from that thing. It looks like
Right.
his head is. It's like you know how the little babies, the like 18 months old globes are bigger than the body and they're so top heavy. That's what those things look like.
Huh.
Devon, the other running back. Was that it?
Very good.
Yeah.
He's a good back, but it just looks weird watching him burst through. Did you guys cover the Kirk Cousins?
We were
now.
literally
Just
just about to hop into it right when you walked through.
I said it. I said if you know him, the guy's got no revenge game in him at all.
Yeah,
He doesn't
He's still
want
going to get booed.
people are
Still getting booed.
people were putting out there on the streets of on X and Twitter. You know, if people are gonna be booing him, I said, why?
I wouldn't boo.
Why?
You
There's
know,
no need to.
I think we're so
You know-
grateful that he's not here anymore.
We'll probably cheer him.
Yeah.
We'll probably
True.
cheer him on.
I've been forever, Jeff, an apologist for Cousinsy. Yeah, I just feel like, and Alec Lewis wrote a really good article about it. He's like, the reality is we are in the position as an organization where we are because of him, because he was an incredible bridge through those years. That guy threw for 4,000 yards just about every year except for when he was not healthy. That guy had the highest accuracy completion percentages of his career here. And he was really good. And he did it with a head coach that hated his guts, clearly. I mean, that's pretty impressive. And he did it with a different O coordinator every year. He had O'Connell 2 years in a row, and you could see what he could do. So I think here he was very, very good. I mean, and we're kidding ourselves if we think Case Keenum was going to be able to hold down the fort. I mean,
Loved
wonderful little run, great
Loved him.
Cinderella story from the Minneapolis
Yes.
Miracle. We get it. But I think the bottom line is his career spelled out where he was at, and it flamed out after that year.
Okay,
Fair?
he won
Fair.
one. He won one playoff game, and I doubt he'll ever win another. He's
You-
the
wow, hot take.
But I will say the
Kirk
Vikings
Cousins will never win a
Okay,
playoff game
does a quarterback
again.
kick field goals, punt footballs, and line up in defensive schemes? Do they?
But what?
Hang on. The Vikings defense.
We're going into this.
Welcome back.
If you look at the numbers of the Vikings defenses from when he was here, atrocious. I think the majority of those were, if I remember the numbers correctly, I wish I had them in my little notes here, but I'm not that dude. It was like 24th to 30th ranked in the NFL. Awful defenses. And what Zimmer's going to say is, well, it's because we gave him all the money. But the truth is that he doesn't play defense.
Yeah.
And your guy JJ doesn't have the numbers he has if he doesn't have a guy like Cousins
True.
giving on the ball.
Very
I
true.
think the Cousins bashing here in Minnesota has been pathetic. Personally, I don't like it.
I think whatever that intangible that a guy like Brett Favre has is exactly what he has as a deficit, though. He's a businessman. He's going to make a lot of money, but he's not going to
Complete a lot of passes too.
Yeah,
He deserves the money,
he's
right?
very accurate.
He's good.
Did Favre win a Super Bowl here?
But when
No,
it
he should've.
comes to
didn't.
gut
He boofed
check
it up.
time,
Nice pick.
you can't rely on him.
Well, I mean, you can't rely on any quarterback. I think quarterbacks in
Pat
this.
Mahomes.
I think
Yes. What
very
Mahomes-
good defenses, though. I mean, if you look at their defenses
It's
and how
rigged.
they've been, you cannot win a Super Bowl. peaNUT, voice of reason here. You cannot win a Super Bowl if you don't have a defense.
But aren't you always
100%.
sure that Mahomes is going to
and that's funny that you mentioned that, though, because that's something that coming from a Minnesota fan who's been very hurt. I know my dad's seen, all the shortfalls and shortcomings of the Minnesota Vikings, but hands down, that's what I've been told, and that's what I've learned my whole life. You got to have an incredible. You think about it too with even baseball, and I know we haven't gotten into that. Maybe we'll get a little bit with everything that's happening in the off season here,
Or not happening.
or lack of. Yeah, exactly, not happening. Is offense is always going to come and go. With baseball, with hockey, whatever it is, there's going to be hot streaks. You're going to be finding the net. You're going to be getting those, bloop singles, doubles, whatever it is. You're going to have those hot streaks on the court where you can't you're not missing a three. But there's something to say about that defense, that effort. I mean, that's always something that you're able to control. And I think for the first time, people really are excited about the Minnesota Vikings defense with Flores doing everything that he's been doing with Van Ginkel. You have Cashman, Minnesota native, who's just playing out of his mind.
When he was out of the lineup, that's when they lost those games, by the way.
So
Cashman. To your point, though, the Minnesota Timberwolves do not go to the Western Conference Finals because of their offense. They go to the Western Conference Final because they had a hawking, vicious, grinding defense that worked hard and had effort and had every moving piece working together in sync. They come back. They decide, that's a little bit of work. I don't think I want to do that. And let's just sort of let this happen. And we got to get used to each other. We got to gel. Okay, so then they do that, and now they look like the best team in the NBA for 3 games. Now, granted, they're playing teams on back-to-backs and all the other stuff, but everybody plays on back-to-backs, and that's part of the deal. So, to me, Kirk Cousins was put in a position where he had no chance. Game managers win Super Bowls, Trent Dilfer and many others. We know that.
Brad Johnson.
Number 14.
Yep.
The game managers win Super Bowls. Superstar quarterbacks win Super Bowls. They're one of 22 players on either side of the ball. So with that said, I think the reception here should be good because I think the memories were fantastic. And I think the last 2 years leading into this year in the O'Connell era was a terrific cultural change. And I think Cousins had something to do with that.
Cousins did not suck. I will give him that. But when they needed
You'll
6
never
yards,
say it was great, will you?
When on 3rd and 6, it's always checked down, and he's not going to finish the season with Atlanta. He's not going to be at the starter at the end of the year for all the same reasons.
Yeah, I think he's really, really good, obviously, and he's done really well. I just don't think he's great. Now, people are going to differ. I get it, but I'm just saying, when it comes down to it, when you need the job done, is he our guy? I don't think so. No.
He was a top 10 quarterback in the previous 2 seasons. This year, he is starting to look a little bit his age. And I think the difference you see with Sam Darnold and him is our guy Darnold Z, and that's the Twins thing, by the way. We do that in my group like they do on our local radio station. Everybody gets the Z on the end of it.
Yep.
But our guy Darnold may hang on to it a little longer than he needs to in the pocket, but he can because his feet are so quick. He's got really good north, south, east, west feet.
Yeah.
And
he does what Cousins couldn't do, extend that play.
Well, because one's 10 years older than the other. I mean, that's a difference. So Darnold looks like a younger player, and my point is that I'm feeling like Cousins is looking a little bit his age. Maybe, but I think also on Atlanta.
Cousins got led.
I'm kidding.
He had more sacks than any other quarterback when he was a Redskin.
Yeah, that was
true.
It's just who he is.
That was a high number. And
does the quarterback get sacked on his own, or does the
at the end of the day
he's got to get out of the pocket?
Yes.
Waggs.
I know, but I'm just saying,
or release the ball, right?
Yeah.
So that you're not taking.
I know, but I'm just saying. I'm saying if you go through any analytics, there will be reasons why guys get sacked that have nothing to do with them.
You look at the kind of the situation that's unfolding over in Chicago right now, and I believe Caleb Williams is right at the top, if not at the top of the highest sack quarterback this year. Yeah, you could look at some of the offensive line and seeing some of the pieces that they have around there. Some of their tight ends, obviously, they got Komet, all-star tight end, who can do a number of different things. So I mean, it's hard to say, it's all on the quarterback. I mean, you got to look at, okay, what kind of line do they have and what kind of abilities? Because it doesn't make it easy. Think of, for example, real quick here, we just played the Cardinals, and obviously, there's still some moving pieces there down in Arizona. But when you have a quarterback like Kyler Murray, I mean, I can't think of a more mobile quarterback than Kyler. And there's just some things where he can only do so much. You still need the help, the assist of those supporting pieces.
Well, if you cue do you have the soundtrack for Run to the Hills there? Like when you watch a guy like Murray, that's like what you see. It's they're running for your life.
Yep.
He runs a different type of way.
Oh yeah, you do that thing. Whenever I see that, I go, yeah, here we go. Yeah. But Caleb Williams is interesting. But there are people, though, just to finish off that sack thing. A guy could come through completely unscathed, right up the middle, right up the chute, with you're literally still in your drop back, getting absolutely railed. Oh, you go. Why did he get? What do you mean? Why did he get sacked?
Move.
Oh yeah, that's okay. I'm okay.
Move.
Right. But I think there's a lot that goes to that. But I think it's funny because this discussion started with Cousins' return, and we went hard on performance and, what kind of an impact had. Why would fans be cheering or booing? And I would expect that the Minnesota fans should be cheering a guy who gave a lot of time, effort, a lot of community involvement, tons of charity work, was committed to the Vikings. And you know what? The truth is I don't think the Vikings really wanted him that bad because they wanted to get out of that big quarterback salary to build the defense with all those names you mentioned moments ago. So I think he served his purpose. He did a great job here. Applaud it.
Right.
Wish him well, and hopefully we don't see each other in the playoffs.
Yeah.
And I will say this about, Cousins or any other quarterback. You can be the top 10 quarterback in the league. You can have all the yards you throw in a season, but if you're not bringing a Super Bowl at the end of the day,
but the quarterback isn't the only person that brings the Super Bowl. That's my point.
No, and I agree with you.
He is the most important player on the team.
He's the one that's he's the conductor. And what I'm saying,
but is he?
I would say,
I think the green dot is as much a conductor as the offensive coordinator, the defensive coordinator, and the center. I mean, I think it's really easy to see that guy as the guy because he's the one that has the ball and he backs up with it.
I mean, you got to have all those.
You got to have everything in place.
Pieces. Well, you think of,
I think quarterbacks get, and I'm just disagreeing with the room here, that I think quarterbacks get way too much credit and way too much criticism.
Yeah.
We've heard that before.
You think of, like you
That's
said,
the truth.
Holmes.
Thanks for that contribution, Jeff. That's awesome.
I wanted to get to Daniel Jones before we shift gears.
And before we shift gears, I know we're definitely enjoying the football talk. Yeah, I was just saying before we got on the air, that was probably one of the better 5-minute interviews that I've seen from a Minnesota Vikings player in quite some time. I mean, I was telling the guys, I'm like, it looked like he was a completely new man. He was smiling, energy was up. I mean, he looked like a kid on Christmas morning almost. And I was sharing.
You were referring to DJ, right?
Yes. Yep. And I was on YouTube. I was kind of catching up on that clip because I actually didn't catch the news right when it broke the other day. And so I was catching up, went on YouTube, saw the 5-minute interview, and man, the comment section on YouTube was unreal. I mean, seeing all the, like I was telling you guys, seeing all the support from, Giants fans or people on the East Coast, there was very little or almost no, bashing of Daniel Jones at all. People were very vocal about, their thoughts on leadership and the coaching and, a lot of the blunders, a lot of the errors that have been going on over the last several seasons. So, yeah, to see the comments, the support from opposing fan bases, and then even just seeing how excited some of the Minnesota Vikings fans were too was pretty great. But yeah, that was a great 5-minute clip there out on YouTube.
He has a ton of talent, and he's a good quarterback. And situations do matter. Ask Sam Darnold about that. But what was interesting to me is I think you look at this team and you like the defense. I think we would agree that Flores probably is not going to be here after this season.
Which is unfortunate too.
He might be.
But I mean, this is your chance.
He's got no takers apparently.
But this is the chance, and we don't know how bad the lower body is. We're going to the NHL here of Darnold. I mean, he's getting a knee or ankle tweaked on a weekly basis. Something's going on there. And, you look at it and you go, okay, we got Mullins and Rippon as our backup quarterbacks. Mullins has been okay in his couple of appearances here. But again, if you can get a guy like Daniel Jones added to the mix in case you need somebody in an emergency pinch, why wouldn't you do that? I mean, and then it leaves you options for next year because, I mean, wouldn't we agree that Darnold's going to probably get in the 20-25 million range next year after what he did here?
Yeah, if they win one playoff game, I think he's on his own.
Yeah,
I don't even think they need to win that playoff game. I think he's proven himself already.
Yeah, I think real quick, I'll keep it high level here. It's very interesting looking across the board. You know, we could look at, you know, what's the difference in pay between male, female athletes, but then you start to look at the differences between football, baseball, basketball, hockey, and I've always found it very interesting how large of a difference there is between all these different sports. And it's something, you know, that I've talked about on X, on Twitter. You know, I host a weekly sports space on Saturdays with a couple of my buddies. And we've talked about that several weeks, where at what point do you hit that ceiling or you hit that bubble where it's just not sustainable to continue to pay some of these players? I mean, you're going to start hitting.
Let's ask the Yankees and Dodgers. At what point do they say $1 billion payroll is ridiculous?
Or I mean, that's pennies or that's chump change. Eventually, you know, 5 to 10 years.
It is insane.
It is kind of wild, but it gets to the point though where you're looking at some of these deals, some of these contracts that are coming into place, and people are getting paid a salary, you know, they're making a wage that is far beyond, I believe, what they're actually capable of performing and doing. But because of the market, people have that upper hand. People are willing to pay, and so they can start to leverage with their agents. Or you have someone like Lamar Jackson too, which, if I remember correctly, he represented himself. He didn't even have an agent. And
he went old school.
He went old school, and he was able to land a pretty legendary,
think about that.
Contract too.
If you're able to represent yourself, and then you don't have to pay the agent fees,
10%.
That's real. I mean, okay, so
absolutely
right, and so what's tax, right? No, for sure. But what's tax? Yeah. And then you put it. So that's what 40, 50, 60%. And then you add another 10%. You're like getting nothing.
Oh yeah. After $1 billion, I feel really bad.
I mean, well, I'm saying, you know, like Sam Darnold's $10 million is probably $3 million when it's all said and done, tax and agent in that.
Light, but maybe I get it.
4.5, fine,
somewhere in there.
But here's the thing, you know, these $1 billion contracts, right? It's the biggest contract that they've ever seen. Where is that ever going to stop? Because we're talking in the next 5 years is going to be $2 billion. I mean, when does that
I
stop?
do think it's so interesting because when you get into the salary discussion, I do think caps, at first I didn't like it when the NBA was the first one that did it because it seemed like there was a lot of it was just too difficult to manage a long-term team.
Right.
Because you had to deal with it. And then now it's kind of just become the way of doing things. And I do think cap sports, like those numbers we're talking about, are baseball, and it's just out of control, and they've got problems. But I do think like a cap really matters in how you keep it realistic, well compensated for what the market bears.
Yep.
But you never know. Your TV stuff is never really ever guaranteed. Daniel Jones' final comment on that, and then you guys jump in on that too if you want.
I love the. You're asking me.
Sure.
I think it's a great play for the Vikes because I think now next year when McCarthy's ready to compete, I think it's going to be great to see him go up against DJ.
They have options now.
Yeah.
That kind of came back to me suggesting maybe, you know, Darnold gets 20 to 25, and that puts you in a position where you go, okay, well, I did a game last night at Brock. I call these scores 9 times.
I like how you cough to your left.
Of course.
Yeah, right.
Well, I went right into the hand. Right. I went in the hand. I had it open.
Further than
aim it a little bit.
We're like blood brothers, so we're good. Like, and it's not COVID, so you're fine. But I do think that they have options to do that because now Jones is in a bit of a prove it year.
Yeah.
You know, so now you can get him for 10.
Oh, and
you know,
O'Connell just probably loves these projects he keeps getting thrown at him.
Yeah.
You know, these are his babies.
He seems to like a certain type of quarterback. You know?
Yep.
Like him.
A little taller. You know? Definitely.
No vulgarity with these guys at all.
It's just,
although it was rumored that that Darnold was with the Huck Chua girl.
Yes, I saw that. Yeah. Nothing's wrong with that.
No.
Oh my god.
Huck Tua.
Another
Like-
conversation for a different day. There's a lot of stuff going on in the Twitter world with her right now. That's a whole nother
She's a
rabbit
millionaire, I
hole.
heard.
Okay,
Just
so
for a Huck Tua.
I mean, like, I just
You
I
know what we're
love
talking about.
1,000%
topic
love the
for another
whole vibe. I love
Right.
the summertime vibe of that. It was all good. Yeah, we got. Thanks for cutting that down.
This is the last
Is
minute
that the
of
last
play
minute
in the
play in the
period.
period, or the? Do we have another period, or what do we
Game
got?
over.
Yeah, this is just
game
the second
over.
period.
Okay,
Oh, man,
good.
we got a couple
well,
periods.
We need to cycle back and get into the National Hockey League. Did you guys go there at all?
We are ready for you to
You're
take it
waiting for
away,
me. I
Waggs,
can't wait.
The facilitator.
All right, let's take a quick break. When we come back, we'll have NHL and more.
That sounds great.
See if you can pull up the Milton. And we are back to the DigiFan Podcast, episode number 3 from the MetaSports League studios with Waggs, JC, ElTeegs, and peaNUT. Welcome back, guys.
NHL hockey. What are you thinking over there, Waggs?
Well, we've got a lot to talk about. First is Four Nations Cup and those rosters. And, you know, the thing about it for me that I love the music, by the way. Thing about it for me that gets me rolling is some of the very best players in the world are Russian. And they need to be in this tournament. I don't care about whatever's going on over there. You know, the whole idea of sports is to be apolitical. So get over your woke selves and get the Russians in here.
Okay.
Seriously, just stop. They're playing puck. They all live here in the U.S. Let's go. Am I wrong? I mean, I could be. Like, I know we'll get absolutely savage for it, but I mean, that's my take. So
I know
yes,
the
I love
leading
Finland,
scorer in the
Sweden,
league is
U.S.,
from Russia.
Canada. Yeah, and then you've got one of the best players in Kucherov as well, and you go on to the goaltenders, and you go Nick Hobby-Bulin and Vasilevsky, and you go on and on and on, and they would be an incredible out for any of these teams to play against. And so, yeah, the Finns are good. Yeah, the Swedes are really good.
Yep.
Canadians are good. Are they as good as they've been? That's the part that's really interesting, where they're fitting in on things. And the U.S. is good. So, that's interesting. We don't need to get into the rosters and, you know, start hammering away on that. That's a little too deep. I'll leave that for the others. But I just wanted Russia in there. That's all. That was the only thing I wanted to get out there.
I think the Wild are not only are they winning, and I think people wondered if they were for real when it first started, but now I feel like they have swagger about them.
They do.
It's just starting to kick in.
It's about time. It's really about time. They have the energy. They have the younger players coming on board. They're making it fun. Fans are loving it. The energy's there, and we're winning games.
I love to see
10-1 and 3 on the road.
Midsy's comments. That guy is a classic, man.
Yeah, if we could pull
He's
up,
such a
if we
beauty.
if we could pull up that interview, that was a good one.
He is
That's
completely a beauty.
100%
Point to be brought up that you said 10-1 and 3, if I heard correctly. I mean, that's a pretty good pace so far, pretty good sample size. I know we were talking a little bit before, you know, having Guerin on Bill Guerin on the local radio for a couple of different shows that are out there. I mean, like we were saying too. I mean, he has a very specific persona and personality where it's very cut and dry, and he's not afraid to say what he has to say. And one of the points that he brought up too, which I was just referencing before we got on the air, I mean, it gets pretty sad when people expect you to win a certain type of way and they can't be happy with the wins, which
I mean, you're just a bitcher if that's the case. Like, I mean, I don't care. Don't be a bitch. I mean, just take the win. Holy shit.
Coming in
like,
really hot.
You're not winning the right way. You won the game, but you didn't win it my way. Oh my God. Nobody's happy.
I heard
No one's ever going to be happy.
God.
I heard it take the other night that Heinz's training camp was so tough, and it got these guys in such great shape that they're in better shape than all the rest of the team. So when they go into OT, or they just outlast these guys, they play stronger throughout the whole game.
I think mostly with that mentally. I think they went from the country club atmosphere. But the 10-1-3 on the road, back to that number, that's
and that's not just like a small sample size. That was something that Garen was saying on the air the other night.
You're getting toward halfway.
You're getting, yeah. I mean, it'd be different if it was, okay, let's take like a 5 or 10 game sample. I mean, that can be.
Or the way the season started, those first groups on the road, we had 7 and 9 on the road or whatever.
A little rough, a little bumpy, but I think when you can start getting enough of a size, where you have 20, 25 games, I mean, you're able to get some good data there. I mean, you got to have data points. And again, we've talked about what's going on with the Minnesota Timberwolves. Yeah, they're off to a little bit of a rough start. They've looked like, they're the best thing since sliced bread, these last couple of games. So we'll have to see. But I think so far, the Minnesota Wild, again, I'm always looking at that away record and seeing how teams are able to step up when, you don't have the fan base, or you don't have, football terminology, you don't have the 12th man there rooting for you, especially in college football, if we're talking Texas A&M fan base, or whoever it is, these large stadiums, these large fan bases that really show up. But yeah, I mean, that's a pretty impressive feat for the Wild to start off the season so far.
Well, you look at some of the moves that they made in the offseason. The reason they were so bad last year is the PK was atrocious, and it hadn't been good for the past few years. So they get a guy like Yakov Trenyan, who is very good. He's got 1 point. He's not pleased about that. He's got 1 assist. He wants a little more in the point production, but his defensive metrics have been really good, and he's been really key to the penalty kill. Lacko was the same. He's on IR now, but those are 2 guys they brought in from the outside to help kill penalties. So you shore that up. You get a goaltender who came back maybe a little less puffy in Gus. He was in really good shape. Yep. I'm sure he would admit that maybe physically and mentally, he just had a baby, and I get how all of that works. It's life. And he's now a year removed from that life change, and now he's the best goalie in the league right now, and he's on Team Sweden in the Four Nations. Good for him. You've got the best player in the world, I believe, in number 97 in Minnesota. We covered that on our last episode.
Yep.
And there's some other. Boldy is starting to come forward.
Connor McDavid. Connor McDavid. It's phenomenal.
He's the fake 97.
He's the fake 97.
You know what though? He leads the league in points, right? So you can't. Whatever you say, I get it, but
Our guy
you're not going to get lucky and you get as many points as he has without the skill.
Who?
McDavid.
No, he doesn't lead the league. Our 97 leads the league.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
By how many? I thought, okay. When
we
was
pull that up?
Yeah.
I don't know the exact numbers, but he's been lights out. I'm suggesting that the Minnesota 97 is really good with his stick. Look at Burns. He's going, oh, no.
No.
He's about to get torched.
No, let's find out.
It's real.
It's just 2 different players. That's all. They're 2 different players, and it's a matter of personal preference.
No,
My personal
I
preference
agree.
is I like the game of Kaprizov and the way he handles all 3 zones,
too.
and I love how his angles.
Yeah.
He's got one of the best sticks I've ever seen. Forces turnovers like nobody. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He's knocking over.
Some people are
going to
say McDavid's faster than him, and he's a better playmaker.
Well, he's bigger, stronger, faster. He's upright, but I would say that I believe from a technique perspective, and you're a coach.
Yeah.
I would believe, Doc, you're a coach. I would believe that I think Kaprizov's one of the best pure skaters you're going to see.
Oh, I agree with you. I agree.
So, fun fact, he's not even in some of the top 5 conversations that maybe you thought he was. We got Kaprizov. He is in 3rd with 39 points. He does have 16 goals, and he does have the league's highest plus minus right now at plus 19.
Boom.
Wow.
That's why he's the best player in the world.
Big. He was the point leader, though.
That is why he's the best player in the world.
Who is the point leader?
Right now, it looks like I'm
McKinnon.
gonna
Connor McDavid.
Nathan McKinnon. It's McKinnon, isn't it?
McKinnon?
No, it's Martin from the Hurricane. It looks like
Oh.
the Hurricanes.
Okay,
Yep.
well, we were all wrong. So.
Yeah,
Okay.
we were.
Now I don't feel so bad.
He's got 41 points right now.
Wow.
It was Kaprizov yesterday or the day before.
Yeah, so he's in and out.
Pretty
It's like
impressive.
back and forth.
Pretty impressive
yeah.
for a center.
So-
It looks like so.
Yeah. No. Again.
for a winger.
Yeah. Something to
So-
note, but yeah, I mean, like I said, it's been really interesting to see that. Like I said, plenty of things to talk when we're looking at Minnesota. But
What do you guys think of this? Sorry,
no, go
Four
for it.
Nation thing in the middle of a season. Are we cool with that Euro soccer thing here in the States, where we like stop the season for that stuff? Where do you guys fit with that?
I mean, I know we've talked a little bit about the in-season tournament for the NBA, and I've enjoyed that, but it's more of
but those count to the standings.
It does count, and it's not like we're considering or taking in other leagues or players from other parts of the world. I think it's a little bit different, because we could bring college hockey into the mix too when you have, and arguably so, the Minnesota Gophers who have been playing pretty well at the collegiate level too this year. You look at some of the players that go on to, play for different nations or in different tournaments too. And, I'm not necessarily the biggest fan of that, but at the same time, I think there's still a lot of upside with that. You get to see some of these players go on to compete against the best of the best in the world, and they come back even better than ever coming back into the season. And I think it really allows some of the younger players too, obviously depending on where the lineup is at, that given point in the season. I think it gives some players opportunities that wouldn't maybe otherwise, and that can really bolster a lineup. But I think sometimes it can be detrimental to the culture and the organization.
As a coach, I totally disagree. I think, if you're going to sign your name on something and you're going to commit to the season, then you stay with that season, right? No matter what, just because
it's a weird gap, isn't it?
People are counting on you. Right.
Yep.
And it's
what if you get hurt?
Mm-hmm.
Well, and that's a liability, right? Do you want to take that chance? No. I mean, at all. Stick with your bread and butter.
Yeah. And we could talk about all-star games too and how,
I think they're dumb.
I do too.
I've been
stop.
I've been
done as well.
I've been
name them too.
Yeah, I've been pretty down on them. People aren't really giving their effort. Yeah, I think some of the skill competitions can be fun from an entertainment perspective for sure. But if you're putting yourself out there and risking injury, I mean, that's
I don't even like. So in hockey, I'm a coach in youth hockey. I don't even let my kids go swimming when we go out of town tournament because they're going to catch something in the water. It's like you don't need unnecessary.
Oh, you're the
risk.
no fun police.
no fun,
no swimming,
swimming. You're staying in the room.
They spend more energy in the pool than they do on the rink, right? And then when they get out there,
they do, yeah, because it's more fun.
And you know what the secret is? The secret is so your guys aren't tired. You have them sit down on the bench. Every other team, kids are always standing up.
You're going NHL.
You sit down and you rest in between. Yes, and I'm just saying right now, unnecessary risks you don't want as a coach ever. So,
but the All-Star games are done.
But what is your take on the big pause, Jeff?
Look at the NFL.
Yeah,
and they still listed in their statistics as like first year All Pro, which is legit, right? You're the best in your position. But then when they say Pro Bowl and they list the years, C.J. Ham was in the Pro Bowl.
It's the best fullback in the game.
No, but you know what I mean? Because they all decline and then they decline and
the
decline.
The next guy.
So
let's get the cheerleaders to play now.
So where do you fit though with the four nations cutting into Olympics? Maybe you can deal with, but something like this is a self-induced product that was created.
I don't like it at all.
Why?
I think it's a distraction. I think you got to stay focused with your team.
Agreed.
And to have to transition out and transition back in and risk an injury, I think it's a mistake.
Well, who's to say a team that is on top of the league like the Wild don't lose their jump? And
rhythm.
Absolutely, 100%. That can definitely happen.
The energy.
I think you could look at multiple sides of the coin. And I felt like it was important to kind of share that take, but I could also see the other perspectives too, where it's like, no, it's actually really bad for culture, and it's also bad just for health too, and just performance,
liability,
performance.
I asked the question just because I'm on the fence, and I don't really know. I don't know what I think. I'm not sure.
Is the last minute of play in the period.
Go both ways on that. I'm not sure. Well, we're going to ramp this up. Last minute of play. Thanks for letting me into the nest.
Always.
I got feel so blessed.
You kept on banging on the door. We had to let you in.
Yeah, right. Let me in. No, it was amazing. So we do live streaming. We had 4 streams going from Michigan in a tier 1 deal. Not one of them were coming through because our back end provider decided that they're going to switch the way the stream keys and the stream IDs were going to work. And we had to unwind the code to make it work. And I was in the midst of an irate leadership group all over me. I'm like, right now it's so great because I've got this fancy watch. It tells you when you're stressed. I don't even stress it. It just rolls right off. You're like, I'm working. You go back into the robot mode, and so it's funny. So thanks for letting me kind of
jump in
show off
jump in
and hop
mid-pod
in and jump with you guys. So it was fun.
Any final topics maybe we hit real quick, or anything to forecast into next week? Anything you're keeping your eyes and radars on here coming into the weekend?
I'm just thinking in the NFL, this is just kind of getting into crunch time for a lot of teams. Teams like Minnesota, Detroit, big win last night over Green Bay. What an entertaining game that was. For those teams that have those 10, 11, 12 wins, they're just kind of setting their playoff mojo. There are so many teams in the NFL that are 5, 6, 7 win teams that can all be flip-flopping each other. And I think this month of NFL football is going to be among the most entertaining because everything's going to be changing every weekend. I'm looking forward to it.
You got teams like Denver that have sort of come out of nowhere. You never anticipated what they were going to do.
Did you think Bo Nix would do that?
No.
Players are going to play harder than they ever have. So, yeah, it's going to be exciting.
It's good. It's a good month, I think.
Agreed.
That's one thing I'm looking for. The second thing I'm looking for is to see if the Timberwolves in Minnesota here can maintain this defensive push. Their defensive game has been absolutely titillating.
Yep.
It's been that good.
Careful.
I can say anything I want.
Hey, fellas.
Isn't it something?
Yeah. I jumped the gun on because we had one thing going. I jumped the gun. We've got probably about 8 minutes here.
8 minutes.
So I jumped the gun.
minutes.
I think you guys should.
We got some overtime today.
I got to get down to the State Department, so I'm gonna have to get ripping here pretty soon. So maybe a little less than. How about 3 minutes?
Yeah. 3 minutes sounds
3
good.
minutes.
You guys wanted to talk about the Timberwolves sale, and no one.
Oh man,
no one jumped on that.
That thing has been changing.
We're gonna keep
perpetually.
Yeah, we're gonna keep the teas going. I think on that. We're not gonna be able to divulge everything on it.
It's the year-long tease.
I think we kind of touched on it last show a little bit.
Yeah.
And it just depends upon which side of the fence you're on. And, you could try to get all the information you want, like I'm trying to, and I'm getting some hunches and beliefs, but I don't think anybody's going to really know. What I do know is I've heard that GT is the master of the small print contracts. I don't think there's any small print in here, but this has been a perpetual way of doing it.
And he delivers them to the hospital bed.
I'm still convinced. I'm still convinced that he sold this team, or no, that he did this deal because he needed the operating revenue and he never had any intention of moving it. I firmly believe that.
Interesting.
Isn't it interesting though?
So basically, he screwed them into 40% ownership and was like, thanks for the money. We're good now. I got the money.
I'll ask him tomorrow night.
We're sold out. Will you?
No, just kidding.
I also think that
it's a theory. It's not. I don't. I mean, it looks like. I mean, if you look at it,
he's got other minor partners, and the value of the team skyrocketed last year, and now you wonder what's going to happen to it this year.
Yeah.
Maybe they just go settle.
Well, what if it tanks?
It's going to.
I mean, at 11 and 10,
yeah,
it's going to.
That's what I'm talking about.
It's going down.
But I think the on the court product, I got to give those guys a lot of credit with whatever that BS is going on. By the way, do you have to have the coach sitting right next to the owner? It's the weirdest, most awkward.
Never understood it.
Get off the sidelines. We don't care. Go away. You look like you're sleeping.
Yeah, he does. Sleepy Joe.
Yeah, I mean, all we want is Lori and A-Rod down there. I don't know if we.
There's a button for that vibrate.
It's all good.
I have that on for the State Department. I literally am going. I gotta go.
Go pay your taxes.
No, I'm going to Montreal.
Oh my gosh, too funny. All right,
I gotta get my passport now, and they close. So
Did you make an appointment?
I already did that.
Okay.
Yesterday.
We're getting all sorts of talks and conversations today on the podcast. Gotta love it.
I'm getting it today.
The passport,
sports, life, everything in between. You guys get it all here today from the DigiFan Pod.
I just went in and we got a different conversation.
It takes 30 days.
No, I just
you can rush it from Chicago.
Well, you can rush it from Minneapolis.
Final points.
If you have immediate travel, which I could prove in an itinerary, and I had a reason to travel, work related, 100%, you can set your appointment. You bring your stuff in, and they fire it off. They say, "Hey, can you come get it tomorrow at 3?" I'm like, "Yeah." Leave your phone on because we're gonna call. So I have it. Sorry, this is just a one. That was Mark DeBray calling me, guys. Great show. Thanks for joining us. We'll be back next week.
Thanks a lot, guys.
And we will be talking more about the Timberwolves. We got the ultimate tease here.
Yeah. Let's go. Hey, thanks.
I love the defense right now.
Thanks, fellas. This is DigiFan Podcast, episode number 3. Join us every Friday at noon or sometime about there. If we can get Waggs here on time.
Where's Quirky?